Episode 121 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast is back to the OG of rules questions, ClubLand Stories. Today's episode features a greensome question about using the partner's club, whether strokes are given in a match play playoff, what is the area underneath a bridge, hitting a ball into the hole with your hand and playing from a no-play zone. We also have the GRQOTW for 121 that you can try wrap your head around.
You see referee David Blake there. He's obviously talking to one of the rules officials up by the green.
Hey everyone, Golf Rules Questions podcast back again. This is episode, Stuart, I can't even remember because you've done the last three in a row. What episode is this?
3 in a row, maybe 5, 121 today, 121.
So you did 120 with Graham Scott. This is 121. I'm Blakey. Welcome back to my own podcast, basically. I've been away, been busy, and I haven't managed to prioritise the Golf Rules Questions podcast, but it didn't matter because in the process, Podcast McPhee, Stuart McPhee, as he likes to be called, I think that's what his dad named him, has been looking after the place and doing an amazing, outstanding job. And just as outstanding as his golf was today, what did you shoot today, podcast?
Playing par +8. Thank you, Blakey,
Plus
for bringing it
8
up.
in par. Now, for those of you who don't know par, it's like playing a type of match play against the course. So it's a stroke play event, but it's a type of match play where you try and beat the course on every hole. And he's had +8. +8. So he wiped the first hole. So he's had 9 wins. That is true. Outstanding. He would have spanked the course, and hopefully he comes home with the massive prize of $25 in the shop.
Massive payday.
So let's get going because I'm short on time here again. Golf Rules Questions podcast episode 120, question of the week. I can't see.
Yeah, Blakey.
It's taken so long that I can't even remember. GRQOTW, is that? Yeah, that's it. Rolls off the tongue.
I think that's the acronym. Yeah.
Go for it. 120. What was it? Do it.
And welcome back to you. It's good to have you back. Great to have you back. GRQOTW 120. Andy, the average golfer, is playing a stroke round at Wombat Hills. On the 17th hole, Andy plays his tee shot way left, and after a brief search, he finds his ball. However, it is right next to the stone-carved wombat statue, which the committee has deemed an integral object. The statue interferes with his area of intended swing. So after advising Danny, the D-grade golfer, his marker, that he'll take free relief, he identifies the nearest point of complete relief and drops another ball into a 1 club length relief area. Stuart walks over and tells Andy that the statue is an integral object and there is no free relief, so he must correct the mistake. Accordingly, Andy properly identifies a 2 club length relief area from the original ball, which has not been moved, in order to take now unplayable ball relief. He realises the drop ball is within the unplayable ball relief area. He then plays the drop ball, which lands on the green. He takes 3 putts to hole out and reports a score of 6 to Danny, 5 strokes and 1 penalty stroke for the unplayable. Before submitting his scorecard, Andy, the average golfer, asks you, Blakey, as a member of the committee, to confirm his score for the 17th hole.
Well, this is a weird one. So he dropped under a free relief, which he wasn't allowed to. So the only relief option that he was entitled to when he had found his ball was 19.2. Is that right, Stuart?
Unplayable. That's what he decided to do because he couldn't play it up against the.
But
statue.
he did. The one that he dropped and played was not the one that was intended to be dropped and played under unplayable, which, to be honest with everyone, it blows my mind. There is no, in this situation, he didn't get lucky because his intention was different to the one that actually should have been dropped and played from within that relief area. So even though he's played from the correct relief area, it was with the ball that was not dropped with that intention to play from that relief area. So we're still going to give him a penalty of 1 for the unplayable. And then he's also got a 2-shot. No, because he played from the relief area, it's just a 1-shot penalty, right? So it's a 1-shot penalty. The wrong place. 1-shot penalty, and then he's played from the wrong place.
Yeah.
Even though it's from the correct relief area, it's going to be a general penalty.
And the interesting thing about this, Blake, I that's what I believe the answer is. The interesting thing is if you read every word of Rule 19, including clarifications, you will not see the rules say that to drop under an unplayable, you need to have that intention when you physically drop the ball. You have to go to committee procedures to actually see those words.
Which is 6.8C
something.
6.8C.
You should find it. Yeah, but it is in committee procedures.
And then there's 4 dot points that you can read about inapplicable rules, taking relief, and all that kind of thing. So check that out if you're still on a committee. You should definitely have checked that out. So the 1-shot penalty for the unplayable is guaranteed. Then you got the 2-shot for wrong place. Sometimes I get that wrong, thinking that he's played from the relief area, but it wasn't dropped in a wrong way. It was dropped with no intention. So effectively, he's just played a ball that's just been lying there, and he's gone, oh, well, that's in my relief area. I'll go and play that. That's the easiest way as to how he gets that penalty. It's as if someone else has dropped it for him, and 3 hours prior, and he's just gone, oh, that's in my relief area. I'll just play that one.
That's a good example. Yeah, it was just happened to be sitting there.
Trying to work, I'm trying to help everyone. I'm trying to help myself as well. That's so complicated. So I don't know what the end score was, but it must have been something like 9 or something like that.
Well, it'd be 8, yeah. So it'd be the 5 strokes plus the 3 penalties.
Because it still took the unplayable 1. Okay, so you just add 2 to the 6, 8. Okay.
For the wrong place. So it is under committee procedures section 6C8, and C8 refers to handling ruling when player proceeds under rule that does not apply. And it actually, in the first bullet point, it says, as Rule 19.1, unplayable ball, requires a player to have decided to proceed under it before taking relief, the committee may not apply Rule 19, blah, 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 to that particular example. So that's where it says that when dropping the ball under a playable, you have to know this is why I'm dropping that ball, and you can't get lucky in the relief area. Yep.
Perfect. Right, we've left it a couple of months. We've got a ClubLand Stories for August. There's a fair few, so we'll try and get through half of them, and then we'll just go with the flow. As I said, this one will be a short one today, and we might do a part 2. We appreciate all the ClubLand stories that get sent in to us. Obviously, they're so entertaining, and usually we don't go through them until live on the podcast. So sometimes we're scratching our heads trying to work out what the actual answer is. But here we go. We've got one from Ruin, who is a fantastic supporter and long-time listener of the podcast. It's greensomes match play. I believe you have previously referred to this format as Ambrose, basically 2 sides of 2 partners. So it's a type of Ambrose. I think it's what we're both. Oh, here it goes. Both partners tee off on every hole, and then they choose their best option, and then they play foursomes from there. So so foursomes, it's alternating stroke. One player tees off, but greensomes, you add in both players can tee off, and then they choose the best one. And the person who doesn't own that ball gets to play it. Anyway, Espen and his son Magnus are partners, and they've reached the 8th hole. It has started raining quite heavily, and Espen attempts to put on his rain cover on the bag. Unable to do this with ease, he gets overly frustrated. Meanwhile, his son, Magnus, takes his shot off the tee and comes back to his now seething with frustration father. Magnus tries to calm him down, says, "Let me do it here, hold this," and hands Espen his driver. While Magnus calmly puts on the rain cover, he hears the well-recognisable sound of a driver hitting a ball. He turns around and Espen, quite proud of himself, has sent his ball straight down the fairway. Espen gets back to his bag and sees his driver standing in his bag with his head cover on, and Magnus now confirms Espen's suspicion. "You've used my driver, Dad." Naturally, they notified their opponents about the breach instantly, and both Magnus and Espen had a full bag of 14 clubs, so there's no sharing of clubs involved. What actions were taken? We always have this in the ClubLand Stories. What actions, in case you do come up with the answer or you're still, talking to the committee about it. Ruin goes on to say nobody was sure which rule would apply since this was greensom. Would this side lose the hole or just the option of playing Espen's ball? They agree with their opponent that Espen's ball was no longer an option and to play Magnus's ball instead. They lost the hole, no further action was taken and no request for a ruling was made. But out of curiosity, they did raise the question with me and a few other rules persons after a few days. This being greensom, which isn't covered by the rules of golf, the closest thing we could find to the situation was the 4-ball rule, 23.9A2, which would have meant an adjustment penalty of 1 hole after hole 8, but since the result was accepted after 19th in Espen and Magnus's favour and made official on the scoreboard, I believe the result stands and cannot be adjusted under Rule 20.1B3. I can't wait to hear your analysis of this. This happened at Odense Golf Club on the par 4 8th hole early June. What are your first thoughts on that one, Stuart?
I got confused, I think, about the second sentence in. Someone's hit someone else's club?
Yeah. So they're playing greensom, so they're partners.
Yeah, okay.
And the first player plays with his own club, and the second player plays with that same driver that first player used. And is it a loss of hole for the whole team because they're playing match play? Or is it just the fact that they can't use that ball where the player used the club that they weren't allowed to use?
If we digress, this is almost what you and I were chatting about yesterday or the day before, that a penalty can go away if that provisional ball never becomes the ball in play, or that penalty goes away if that stroke is replayed and never counts towards the whole score. Yep. This is almost similar. It's, if we continue with that ball, it's going to be a penalty. How about we go and just play the other ball?
Yeah, that's the way that I'm looking, the way that I'm heading down. I can't see why they, as I said, this it's a modified form of foursomes, basically. It's not what I would call Ambrose, because Ambrose you play, everyone gets a shot every time and you choose the best. This would be a modified version of foursomes, so you could have a look at 22. But 22... there's never a situation where you can play two balls, from the same place and have an option of picking them. So that's why Ruin went to 23, because as a 4-ball, you do get that option of playing two balls at the same time. It hasn't helped anyone's play. It hasn't.
Disadvantage the other team.
Disadvantage is a good word to use. Disadvantage the other team. So I would say that ball there doesn't count because it wasn't used with a club that was allowed to be used. And so the only option they have is to use the other ball. And if the other ball went out of bounds, then one of them, the one that didn't hit it out of bounds, would have to play from the tee.
Play next.
3 off the tee. But they said that they agreed, and so there was it was match play, so they figured it out that way, and they were happy with it, and the opponents agreed with that was the result, and in the end they ended up winning, and they submitted the score, and the committee knew the official results, so it is what it is, but that's how I sort of see it.
And it is an important part of match play that you just mentioned, that if everyone agrees, as long as we're not deliberately ignoring a breach and agreeing to ignore that breach, if everyone agrees and everyone's happy and we agree on the match score and someone tees off on the next hole, happy days, we're locked in. Yeah. That's the match score.
Yeah, that's how I see it. This type of thing where it's a modified game, the committee has to come up with an answer. And if I was
What's
on the
fair?
committee, if I was on the committee, I would just say, well, that one didn't count. As long as you didn't use it. If they used it, well, then it should have been lost a hole. Right, next one.
Yes. Yep.
Anne, AB, Staleford round, par 4, player has 2 handicap points on this hole. Ball on green for 4 strokes. So they could 2-putt and have 2 points, basically. Player putted the ball, which stopped very short of the hole. Player tapped the ball into the hole with hand instead of using a golf club. They realised they shouldn't have done that. Was the ball holed or was it just moved? What should have happened in light of recent podcasts where player used putter grip to putt ball into hole? In Staleford, they wiped the score for the hole. Discussion after the round with playing group, clarification to be sought via GolfRules Questions. This happened at Northern Golf Club. Podcast, what's your answer?
Well, there's definitely no stroke made. So when you put it in with your hand, it's definitely not a legal stroke. That's just moving your ball, which is going to cop a penalty because it was a deliberate move. Like, it wasn't accidental movement. It was a deliberate action to move the ball. So they're short of the hole for 5. They've moved their ball. That's 1 penalty stroke. So that takes them to 6. So all they've got to do is put the ball back, and they've still got to putt for a point. 7 for 1.
Yeah. Yep. Now, interesting enough, I agree with you that that's not a stroke. But what if their hand was touching the club? Say they were holding their club head really, really low down. And they sort of, a horn went off or there was an earthquake and they sort of moved, jumped, and it hit their fingernail. What would you say that was? I guess there was a stroke made, even though it hit you. It's a terrible stroke, but it's still a stroke made, and then that wouldn't be, like a putter grip type thing.
No, that's a forward movement of the club.
Yeah,
to strike the ball.
To strike the ball, and it's just a terrible,
really bad stroke.
It'd be like hitting your ball with the shaft. And
I think that's different.
I don't
mean
the hosel. I mean the actual shaft.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. But in this case, their intention was to hit it with their hand. Okay, yeah. So completely just cause the ball to move.
And definitely not hold. Doesn't matter where it ended up. Just got to put it back, take a penalty stroke, 9.4B, and complete play of the hole.
Okay, Briggsy. Glenelg Golf Club has an internal OB area. I love internal OBs. I'm the only one. Green turf nursery, left of the par 5 12th hole. Tee shot goes left and the ball lands next to a staked tree. Complete relief is required from the staked tree. Local rule. It's very common in Australia, that local rule for staked trees. Not
protect
only the stake,
trees,
but also the tree. Because they're trying to protect these young trees. Nearest point for a right-handed golfer would have the relief area inbounds, but your stance in the OB area. OB is indicated by white stakes. Can you drop the ball such that your relief area is inbounds, but your stance would be out of bounds? What if the OB was a fence and you could not stand OB? OB as in out of bounds. I like to say OOB, out of bounds. The only reason I say that is OB for me is original ball.
For us, original
I definitely understood what you meant by OB. But podcast, as the player would be standing out of bounds to strike the ball in the relief area closest to the out of bounds, the player took relief on the other side of the stake tree such that both the stance and relief area were inbounds and provided a much easier recovery shot. Where did this happen? Glenelg Golf Club. Stuart, what do you think on that one?
Well, we know you can stand out of bounds to play a ball that is on the course, inbounds. So if the nearest point of complete relief and dropped within the relief area in the course or on the course, inbounds, and you had to stand outside, bad luck, that's fine. You can do that. If it was a fence, then you've got an issue, but it's still your relief area and your ball's still in play, and then you've either got to take it unplayable. You and I think, may have discussed a similar situation to this a little while ago where we said you could probably make an argument that if you're right up against the fence and had no shot, your only shot would be to turn around and play left-handed. So if you wanted to have a go at hitting the back of the club and actually advance the ball, and then you may have interference from that stake tree again. And then you could take a further relief procedure by saying and putting forward a case that you want to play left-handed to advance the ball.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that's a great point, because in this situation, if the out of bounds was, as it's an internal out of bounds, the out of bounds might be just another fairway. If someone said, I'm going to play left-handed, I would say that's not reasonable.
no, not within internal, with it's just stakes. Yeah.
But if it was, and I'm not saying maybe, yeah, I mean a fence or a tree, and they said, oh, well, I can't play it that way because of the fence. I have to try and play left-handed. That might mean that their nearest point is further back away from the hole. If it was a cliff edge, it would be reasonable to say you can't play right-handed or whatever it is, and you have to change it to the other dexterity. But yeah, the point's well made there, is that this player has actually taken free relief in the wrong relief area and should be docked general penalty for playing from a wrong place. There is no rule that stops you from your nearest point of complete relief not being the nearest point because you're standing out of bounds. Okay, good. Thank you, Briggsy. Good question. And he's up for another one. Playing Stableford. Stableford's a very popular game in Australia, very popular. You can, wipe a hole and it doesn't ruin your afternoon. Playing Stableford, new turf is laid on the front left side of the 10th green. This area is marked as no play zone. Free relief may be taken outside the no play zone on the fairway. Second shot lands in the no play zone. Ben plays a shot from inside the no play zone onto the green, and Marks picks up his ball. Ben realises his mistake and returns to the no play zone and drops his ball outside the no play zone, correcting his mistake. Ben chips on in 2 putts, writing down a score of 5. Ben made general penalty a whole lot worse by attempting to correct, and this happened at Glenelg Golf Club as well. This question, I ran through that very fast. Sorry. But this question looks a lot like a question that was in a Drop Zone episode or edition recently. Would that be correct? You've plagiarised someone's ClubLand story into the Drop Zone.
That's one way of looking at it.
What is the answer then? What would we give the answer for in the dropping zone?
Well, I think Briggsy sort of answered it there a bit, that if you make a stroke from within a no play zone, that stroke counts, but you do get the general penalty from playing from a wrong place. So when he's put it on the green and marked it and lifted his ball, that ball on the green, that ball was in play. There's nothing to correct. And he should have played his next shot from the green whilst adding the general penalty. So the fact that he's now got his ball in his pocket and he's walked back to the drop zone for that no play zone and put that ball or another ball back into play again and then made a stroke at it, he's going to cop another general penalty for playing from a wrong place. Again, because he should have been playing from the green.
I've actually got a YouTube video of this one, putting on the green, and you take the one club head length away because your ball marker's in the way. You putt from that incorrect spot, don't hole it, and then you go, oh, my mistake, and you replace it on the correct spot and putt it again. You've actually got 4-stroke penalty now.
Yep.
So
very similar, yeah.
It pays in that case. It very much pays to know the rules.
And that playing from a wrong place, yes.
Sorry,
Blake, there's been caught trying to correct it. Sorry.
The only time you have to correct a wrong place is if it's a serious breach, and it's the committee's decision as to what a serious breach is. But in my mind, it comes back to how big an advantage was that advantage, more than say a 2-shot penalty, that type of thing. So, chipping around the green, very unlikely to be a serious breach. Could be, up to the committee, but very unlikely.
Committee's always right, even when they're wrong, but it's worth highlighting that 14.7 serious breach or wrong place is the second situation in which you can complete play of a hole with a second ball, if you are not sure whether it's a serious breach or not.
Right. Nico I had a call from the club captain, bear in mind I'm his vice captain, asking for a ruling. Albeit this was after the event and he had been in a friendly match at Kenilworth Golf Club in the UK, my home club. Our fifth hole is stroke index 1 and is a dogleg left, long par 4, with a ditch across the fairway roughly 140 yards from the green and out of sight of the tee. The ditch is a dry ditch. It is about 2 metres wide across the whole of the fairway and has a pipe buried below the floor of the ditch to carry water, about 0.75 metres down, and the floor is covered by large pebbles. On either side of the fairway across the ditch are 2 bridges about 5 yards into the fairway each side. You can walk down either side and cross the ditch using one of the 2 bridges. The captain, reasonably high handicap, shouldn't matter, was playing his second shot to clear the ditch towards the green and had mishit the ball which went into the ditch, bounced around the pebbles on the right and ended up in a rabbit hole dug under the bridge. Remember, the ditch is dry. The ditch itself is clearly marked with red stakes. These are positioned at reasonable intervals all the way across, including immediately on either side of the bridge. The captain was calling to confirm his view, which I believe was accepted at the time, that he should be allowed free relief as the rabbit hole was dug under the bridge, not disputed, as I know that was the case. He was 100% sure his ball was in it because he could see it and recovered it, and because the bridge was not in the penalty area, as the red stakes we have at the side of the bridges, you surely mean that the penalty area ends there. The bridge is in the general area and therefore an immovable obstruction. This is their thoughts. And then the penalty area continues again from the other side. Nico's response to the captain was that the red stakes, irrespective of whether they're next to the bridge or not, identify the whole area as a penalty area. There is nothing in any local rule to indicate otherwise. The bridge wasn't there for in the general area, and if Nico had been adjudicating in a competition, he would have said he wasn't entitled to free relief and should have taken the penalty like a man. or words to that effect, as he is the captain. This happened in Kenilworth Golf Club, Warwickshire, UK. What are your thoughts on that one, Stuart?
Well, this again comes down to the committee and how they've marked that hole, how they've marked the ditch and the bridges over that area, and whether it's in the penalty, whether it's a penalty area. And I suspect, just from what we're hearing there, that the whole area is a penalty area, including the bridges that cross this area. The bridges are within the penalty area, as many are in different courses, the way they mark it. They don't often stop penalty areas at the bridges, and the bridges are then in the general area. So in that case, the ball's in the penalty area, no entitlement to free relief from an abnormal course condition, which an animal hole is. If they've taken a drop outside that penalty area, then they're obviously going to cop the 17.1 penalty plus a wrong place penalty. You're looking at 3 penalty strokes. But again, it comes down to the marking. Was the ball in a penalty area or not? And I suspect from what we're hearing, it was.
I'm the same with you. In my eyes, the bridge is definitely in the penalty area. It's just which part of the bridge is in and which part of it's out. It could be a long walkway in the general area and then into the penalty area part of the bridge, because that's the part that's over the ditch. Ditch and bridge, I know people, Colin will understand from Waimate. So, so it's definitely in the penalty area. And as you said, he's taken 17.1 one-shot penalty without knowing.
No, exactly.
He can get lucky, but probably unlikely in this scenario, in that he could drop in the correct relief area. Even though we talked about this in the GRQOTW, where you have to have the intention to play under the correct rule. You don't. It's not the same for free relief and for penalty areas. That's only for lost ball and unplayables. Anyway, that's a sidetrack. In my mind, the only way that this would not be a penalty area, the part under the bridge was not a penalty area, is if the committee drew it up that way and were allowed to draw it up that way. In my mind, if there's a rabbit hole underneath, they weren't allowed to draw it up that way. I mean, it's ridiculous to have it's ridiculous to have a ditch that's part of the general area just because it's under a bridge.
Yeah.
If it was completely cemented with a pipe, an immovable obstruction pipe going through, if for the listeners out there, if you can think about that, I would allow that to be a movable obstruction with the penalty area going on either side, but I would not allow it if it was just pebbles and rocks and loose dirt and stuff like that.
What's say if it wasn't a general area? Would the caveat of a reasonable stroke might come into it as well?
Yes and no. I mean, he could get down really low and say that he's going to hit.
Yeah.
All you got to do is say you're going to hit. It's got to be reasonable to hit like a 6-inch backswing and chip it out sideways.
Yeah.
It gets tougher for a reasonable stroke if there's trees, big bush. Your ball's 40 foot in the air or something like that.
I mean, the gap between the pebbles and the underside of the bridge could be 30 centimetres, could be a foot. It could be no way of making a stroke. We don't know without seeing it.
Couldn't. Yeah. So in that case, not only is it you couldn't even go and play a stroke, but you couldn't even get to it. In that case, no chance. Right. Good one, Nico. Thank you very much and we hope we helped you out there. We agree with you, Nico, basically. And we look forward to you when you're captain of Kenilworth. Okay. Guess who? Colin. From Waimate.
Very good.
Match play. Foursomes match that goes to the 19th and beyond. Just like Toy Story. A stroke play round is also being played that also includes a match between the two pairs. Oh my God, this sounds confusing already.
Stroke play round.
How can you foursomes match in a stroke play round?
How are they playing? Yeah, how are they playing individual stroke play if they're playing foursomes?
Players have started on hole 1 and finished on the 18th, tied in their match, and then proceeded to play another 5 holes to get a result. A week later, one of their players asked if it goes to the 19th, should the shots be given again? The players would have started on 1 and carried on until the 5th, until a result was decided. And then he goes on to say, not entirely sure, but use this from the R&A. How ties will be decided in a handicap match. The stroke index allocation is set by the committee, should be used to determine where handicap strokes should be given or received in extra holes, unless the terms of the competition state otherwise. A tie in a match should not be decided by a stroke playoff. As I say, I'm not sure if this was the right decision, but plus it was a week later and the winners were asking the question as they have another match to play. Sorry we were too late because this happened 6 weeks ago, Colin. But
It's all over.
let's just answer the question. If you play a match, the handicaps are given for the first 18 holes. Then if you continue that match, you get your 18-hole handicap again. It's not like it just stops. And I guess that's the easiest way to saying it, Stuart, is your handicap is an 18-hole handicap.
Yep.
For 9 holes, you halve it. And for 36 holes, you double it. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that the easiest way to say it?
Yep, and you continue in the same order.
And you continue in the same order.
So, of course, it depends on what match play index. We know we use a particular match play index in this country, which is very, very common. And we know that hole 1 is not index 1. So, in other words, good chance you'd play the first hole or the 19th hole of the match, and there's no handicap strokes to be given.
Because it's the number 18.
Right.
And
you have to get to hole 8 before you got the first one.
We call it universal match play index.
Right.
And it's only in Australia.
It is very widely used, though.
In Australia.
Yeah.
But it's not universal.
So, like, for example, if the handicap strokes to be given were 3, they would only get 1 on the 4th hole because that's index 3 in the match play index.
At Gardner's Run, you're talking about?
No, the match play index.
Oh, yeah, right.
Not the stroke play index.
The universal only used in Australia match play index.
8 is 1, 12 is 2, 4 is 3, and 16 is 4, I think.
Yeah, and 1 is 18. And
so if they played an extra 5 holes, in those 5 holes, only 1 handicap stroke would have been given, and that would be on the 4th hole if they're using that index.
If 3 shots in your situation would have been 3 shots. Okay.
Yeah.
We won't talk about whether there was a foursome round and a stroke play round at the same time as...
I'd like to see that.
Colin, write in again about that. That's blown my mind. Thank you very much, everyone who submitted. So thank you very much, everyone. Podcast, do you want to go through the 121 GRQOTW, please?
I do. GRQOTW for episode 121 is as follows. Our favourite, Andy, the average golfer, is playing a stroke round at Wombat Hills. On the 9th hole, he hits his second shot way left towards the driving range. Among all of the other golf balls, however, he does find his ball and play his third stroke towards the green. After one chip and 3 putts, he holes out. As he is waiting at the back of the 9th green, waiting for the others to finish the hole, a staff member walks down very quickly and advises Andy that the driving range is out of bounds. Andy asks the staff member, "What does that mean?" "Neither know." So they approach you as a member of the committee for assistance. What is Andy the average golfer's score for the 9th hole?
Did I come second? That's what I want to know.
There's something on the back of the 9th hole.
Was I coming? Did Andy win the comp and I was in second place?
Well, fortunately, he hasn't teed off on the 10th yet.
Oh, okay.
So he's just waiting at the back of the 9th. Yeah.
That would definitely change my view as to whether he's going to be penalised or not.
So he's waiting at the back of the 9th. Others are still putting out, and someone's come down from the clubhouse and gone, "Oh, did I see you play from over on the driving range? Because that's out of bounds." And Andy's gone, "So what does that mean?" And of course, the staff member didn't know, and because he's not DK, and Andy didn't know. So they've grabbed you.
His average.
What's his score?
Right, excellent. Hopefully you have a crack. I know Ruin will have a crack on YouTube. That was a tricky one. But the good thing is he didn't tee off on the 10th yet. So never know. The committee might be able to help him out. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. It's been a long time between drinks of you hearing my ditch and bridge accent. Thank you very much again for Stuart Podcast, McPhee, for looking after the podcast the last few months. And we'll see how we go going into the next few months as well. Get those ClubLand stories in. I had been away on Live and Asian Tour, so I'm writing up a blog so you can read that in the latest drop zone or maybe next drop zone if I get to it. But thank you everyone for listening in and contributing. Thank you, Stuart.
My pleasure, Blakey. Good to see you back.
Right. Let's pray that I've recorded this thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I know. Oh, it's